Happy New Month. Many thanks for staying with us. Welcome to the Midday International News Desk on ECWA Television Africa. I am Lois Turaki. Here's what coming up on the news today. G20 offers modest steps, says climate threat urgent and critical. Leaders of the world's 20 major economies have decided to tackle the critical and urgent threat of climate change, but enraged activists by giving limited tangible pledges to reduce global warming. Closing the summit in Rome, the leaders of the G20 pledged on Sunday to stop funding coal-fired power plants in poor countries, but set no timetable for phasing it out at home. It was agreed by the leaders to cap the global increase in temperature to 1.5 Celsius, that's 2.7 Fahrenheit, above the pre-industrial average, but made only a vague commitment to seek carbon neutrality by or around mid-century. This was the outcome of days of hard negotiation among diplomats, and it leaves enormous work to be done at the border United Nations COP26 Climate Summit in Scotland, which starts this week. Although Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi and French President Emmanuel Macron described the G20 as a success, the result disappointed the chief of the United Nations as well as the leader of the United Kingdom. The pronouncement went more on climate than any G20 statement before it, Draghi said. He noted that it referred to limiting global warming at the 1.5 Celsius threshold that scientists say is vital to avoid disaster. We changed the goalpost, he added. Now, ministers say several killed in Houthi missile attack on mosque. According to the country's information minister, a Houthi ballistic missile attack on the Yemeni province of Marib has killed and injured 29 civilians, including women and children. Muammar al-Iranian, in a tweet on Monday, said the two ballistic missiles used in the attack hit a mosque and a religious school. Marib's governor's office said the attack took place late on Sunday. There was no immediate claim of responsibility by the Iranian-backed Houthis. The fight between government forces and Houthis has intensified in recent months. The United Nations says about 10,000 people were displaced in September by fighting in Marib, the internationally recognized government's last northern stronghold. It is calling for a humanitarian corridor for aid. The conflict in Yemen and resulting economic collapse, as well as restrictions on imports to Houthi-held areas, have resulted in what the UN says is the world's biggest humanitarian crisis, with 16 million people facing starvation. The Houthis say they are fighting a corrupt system and foreign aggression. A coalition of forces led by Riyadh interceded in Yemen in March 2015 after the Iran-aligned Houthis removed the Saudi-backed government from the capital Sana'a in late 2014. In October, the Houthi movement said they had seized new territory in the energy-rich provinces of Shu'aib and Marib, gains confirmed by sources that it presses an offensive likely to further confuse international peace efforts. In America, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirms she has COVID-19. Jen Psaki, White House Press Secretary, says she has contracted COVID-19 and is feeling mild symptoms. Psaki said she was last in contact with United States President Joe Biden on Tuesday in a statement on Sunday when she met him in the White House, where they were more than 6 feet apart and wearing masks. According to the White House, Biden, who is tested frequently, last tested negative on Saturday. Psaki did not escort Biden on his journey abroad to Rome this weekend for the Group of 20 summit and Glasgow, Scotland on Monday for a United Nations climate summit. She had arranged to travel with the president but cancelled the trip just as he was set to leave for Europe after having the knowledge that members of her household had tested positive for COVID-19. Psaki in a statement, "Since then I have quarantined and tested negative via PCR for COVID on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. However, today I tested positive for COVID." Psaki, who is fully vaccinated, says she is only exhibiting mild symptoms. "While I have not had close contact in person with the president or senior members of the White House staff since Wednesday and tested negative for 4 days after that last contact, "I am disclosing today's positive test out of an abundance of transparency," the press secretary said. White House staff and others who traveled with the president have been experiencing daily tests for COVID-19 since before leaving Washington, D.C., and are all fully vaccinated. Several officials have also received booster shots due to the close quarters environment and frequent travel associated with their work. President Biden got his COVID-19 booster on September 27th, shortly after federal regulators approved the third dose for many Americans. White House Press Secretary Psaki is the most high-profile person in the Biden administration identified to have contracted COVID-19 since he took office in January. She said she will return to work in person after a 10-day quarantine and following a negative rapid test. Still in the news, Fumio Kishida's coalition wins absolute majority in parliament in Japan. In Sunday's parliamentary election, Fumio Kishida's Japanese Prime Minister coalition has secured a comfortable majority. Challenging some predictions, Kishida's Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, claimed 259 seats in the 465-member lower house, an outcome that gives the party a total stable majority and control over parliamentary committees. According to the final but not yet official results, the LDP's junior coalition partner, Komeito, won 32 seats. Collectively, the two parties' share of seats in the lower house is 291, well above the majority of 233 that Kishida had aimed for. The lower house election is about choosing a leadership, the Prime Minister said late on Sunday. "I believe we receive a mandate from the voters." Notwithstanding its comfortable win, the LDP did lose 17 seats from its pre-election share, including in single constituencies held by the influential party members, such as Secretary General Akira Amari, who was stung by a past bribery scandal. Amari offered to quit even though he eventually secured his seat in proportional representation. The Prime Minister, who has only been in power for a month, said the losses were in part due to opposition parties' strategy of fielding unified candidates in many single-seat electoral districts, but also because of voters' judgment of his predecessors over the past 4 years. People rejoice as Australia reopens international borders. Australia has relaxed its international border restrictions, causing emotional sense at airports as some loved ones reunited for the first time since the coronavirus pandemic began. After over 18 months of some of the world's strictest COVID-19 border policies, millions of Australians are free from Monday to travel without a permit or the need to quarantine on arrival in the country. While travel is initially limited to Australian citizens, permanent residents and their immediate families, a plan sets in motion to reopen the country to international tourists and workers, both much needed to revive a fatigued nation. Travelers on the first flights from Singapore and Los Angeles landed in Sydney early in the morning, several greeted by tearful friends and relatives they had not seen for several months. Passengers were also welcomed by airline staff holding banners and were gifted Australian wildflowers and chocolate biscuits. In Melbourne, a water cannon sprayed at Singapore Airlines plane in celebration as it taxis down the tarmac after landing. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said it was a big day for Australia, posting on Facebook that the country was now ready for take-off. He added, "It's wonderful to see Australians able to reunite with loved ones after such a long time apart." The relaxation of travel rules in Victoria and New South Wales states and the Australian Capital Territory comes as much of Australia switches from a COVID-0 pandemic management strategy towards living with the virus through extensive vaccinations. Many calls for restructurings to monarchy government in Bangkok. Protesters in Bangkok, Thailand, once again came out onto the streets of Bangkok calling for reforms to the Thai monarchy and the military government. With many in attendance, Sunday's rally was one of the largest protests in recent months, despite being temporarily disrupted by rain. Small-scale demonstrations have been a continuous feature, particularly in Bangkok's Din Diang neighborhood, some of which have led to clashes with police. It was at one of these protests that a teenage boy was shot in the head in August, leaving him in a coma for 2 months before he eventually died last week. One of the main themes of Sunday's demonstration was to call for the repeal of Section 112, a draconian piece of legislation that criminalizes criticism of the king. While it was once taboo to call for reforms to the monarchy, young protesters are becoming progressively bold in their demands. At the protest, a man in a Squid Game costume stalked the street holding a sign that read, "Abolish 112, abolish fear, abolish indifference, abolish hopelessness." Amnesty International, a global rights watchdog, was on the scene assembling signatures for a petition demanding the release of prominent activists who have been arrested and charged under the law. As of November 1st, visitors from more than 60 countries can enter Thailand without quarantining, even if they are fully vaccinated. According to a citizen, "We want the tourists to see what's happening in Thailand. Thailand is never the land of smiles, it's just the land of lies," he said, referring to a common tourism slogan. In Africa, marginalized Ivorians lament costs of oil. Governments in Africa typically hail the finding of oil and gas as a blessing, but poor villages in southern Ivory Coast are among those who say it can also be a curse. Locals say they have yet to profit from a decades-old bonanza on the petroleum-rich coastline of Jaggaville, about 100 kilometers 60 miles from Ivory Coast's economic hub of Abidjan. Employees are busy setting down a third pipeline cutting across farms and villages to help bring gas from offshore rings to power stations. Nonetheless, in the village of Ada, found at the end of a bumpy, dusty road, people say they have yet to see any drop from the boom and complain the whole issue is masked in secrecy. Jean-Biat Kondri said, "I don't understand why a village that has an oil rig has no fire station and no secondary school, or why the hospitals don't have supplies." Now, children from Korogocho slums hope of better life intact in Kenya. On a daily basis, life is not so enjoyable for children who live in urban informal settlements, given the many challenges they face. According to Mohammed Rashid, Operation Officer, hope is, however, alive for the lucky ones in Nairobi's Korogocho slums, where Akakoro Football Academy is giving a life-changing opportunity for the less fortunate children. We provide a meaningful sport and skill development activities that are supporting school enrollment and educational achievement for some of the most disadvantaged children in the urban informal settlement of Korogocho and its neighborhoods. The programs offer excessive potential to improve poverty for the recipients, while also offering them with sporadic opportunities to play against some of the major European football clubs. Once a year, some have the opportunity to travel to Europe to contest in international tournaments, and this gives the children the opportunity to display their skills internationally. Children living with disability also get a chance to change their lives through the programs that have been originated by the Academy. We implemented a pilot project with UNICEF Kenya in the year 2019, where we integrated 10 children living with mild intellectual disabilities. Also, we were fortunate that we received capacity building workshop from Special Olympics with regard to the inclusion of disability components in the project. Finally, Tigrayan forces claim to seize new town of Kombolcha. On Sunday, Tigrayan rebels publicized that they have taken over the northern Ethiopian town of Kombolcha, started a battle to recapture the strategic city of Dessie. The announcement by the TPLF came a day after it claimed control of Dessie, a big victory for the group in the nearly year-long war after it recaptured most of Tigray from federal forces in June and extended into neighboring regions. Most parts of northern Ethiopia are banned to journalists, making confirmation of reports from both sides virtually impossible. The conflict in Kombolcha, south of Dessie, has fired rumor that the TPLF was heading closer to the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. In Kombolcha, scared populace said, according to reports, they had spent the day in their homes as gunfire resounded in the streets, with TPLF fighters clashing with Ethiopian soldiers and local militias. The Tigray region has been subjected to almost daily aerial bombardments by the Ethiopian Air Force over the past 2 weeks, targeting, according to Addis Ababa, military infrastructure of the Tigrayan rebels. According to the TPLF, the bombings have targeted civilian areas. Hospital sources in Mekelle, the capital of Tigray, reported around 10 deaths, and the United Nations reported 3 casualties on 18th October. The conflicts have triggered widespread displacement and, according to the United Nations, have left about 400,000 displaced. That's all for the news today. Till I come your way tomorrow for more updates. Remember this: know the true value of time, snatch, seize and enjoy every moment of it. No idleness, laziness, no procrastination. Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today. According to Philip Stanhope. Have a good day.